DNC lawyer by the name of Michael Sussman. He was charged with lying to the FBI. Mm-hmm. In Mr. Sussman's indictment, it's interesting because a foreign policy advisor was listed. It said it detailed how a Hillary Rodham Clinton campaign lawyer exchanged email with the campaign manager and the communications director and a foreign policy advisor. As it turns out, Fox News, through two sources, has learned that that foreign policy advisor is Joe Biden's national security advisor, Jake Sullivan. So that's the guy in the lawsuit, or rather, in the indictment.
He's in the indictment. He's one of Joe Biden's cabinet members now. And what's significant about this is it shows this first connection to the Biden administration. But there's no indictment that Jake Sullivan is the target of the Durham investigation.
That we know.
Only that he received information from a campaign lawyer. Now, Sussman, the guy who was indicted, who was Hillary's campaign lawyer, he told the FBI he wasn't doing any work for a client when he held this meeting about Trump and Russia. Then he later sent Hillary Clinton's campaign a bill for that meeting.
Well, he was hiding the fact he's working as a Clinton campaign advisor when he tipped off the feds about this electronic communications between a Russian bank and the Trump campaign. That's the problem for him.
Which was just a marketing line. There was no real link between this bank of Trump and Russia. So do you understand what's going on here? They're saying there's this Russian collusion going on. They're building up this storyline. They're hiring someone to come up with information. That person got information from this Russian, Dushenko, and it was all faulty, unverified. That's called the dossier. And what's astounding, at the top of the pyramid is this guy, Chuck Dolan Jr. Chuck Dolan goes back to the initial Clinton administration, worked for Strobe Talbot. They were dealing with Boris Yeltsin. He had impeccable contacts in Russia. Could the American link with Clinton, give Dushenko, the Russian, information to give to Steele dossier that was the basis for this whole probe? And remember, Christopher Steele was so motivated by this faulty information, he came to the U.S. and started lobbying writers and saying, write this story. And then he gives it to Mother Jones.
Right.
And Mother Jones starts it and they blow it up. Do you believe this guy? Keep your eye on Chuck Dolan Jr. So Morgan Ortega's had a chance to fill in on The View. And she worked for the State Department spokesperson under Mike Pompeo, and a great friend of this show who knows this information and knows how distracted the Trump team had to be because of this Russian probe. Listen to how he confronts Adam Schiff, who just wants to sell a book. See if Adam Schiff blinks at all. Watch it home.
You defended, promoted, you even read into the congressional record the Steele dossier. And we know last week the main source of the dossier was indicted by the FBI for lying about most of the key claims in that dossier.
First of all, whoever lied to the FBI or lied to Christopher Steele should be prosecuted.
But you
the
made
president also
Russian disinformation yourself for years by promoting this. I think that's what Republicans and what people who entrusted you as the Intel Committee chair are so confused about your culpability in all of this.
Well, I completely disagree with your premise. It's one thing to say allegations should be investigated, and they were. It's another to say that we should have foreseen in advance that some people were lying to Christopher Steele. But let's not use that as a smokescreen to somehow shield Donald Trump's culpability.
That's your job.
For inviting Russia to help him in the election, which they did, for trying to coerce Ukraine into helping him in the next election. None of that is undercut. None of that serious misconduct is in any way diminished.
Wait for it.
By the fact that people lied to Christopher
Wait for
Steele.
it.
No, I think just your credibility. That's.
Remember his nickname back then? It was Shifty Chef. He pushed and pushed and pushed this dossier.
Right. So while she had him was grilling him yesterday, let's return to Jake Sullivan, who sits in the White House. He works for Joe Biden. He has a connection now to the Russia hoax. And Asa, you're absolutely right. There's no indication he is the target of a probe that we know of. But the New York Post details how he may have committed perjury during a closed-door congressional hearing in 2017 because Sullivan denied knowing any specific details about Hillary Clinton's Oppo research efforts or that Sussman's law firm was working for the campaign until October that year. That is not true, it appears, given the fact that they were, as I mentioned a moment ago, they were all talking to each other. So then he tells the Congress, yeah, I don't know anything about this. It looks like he knew about it. Would that be perjury?
Put it this way, not good. Joe Biden, what did he know? And number two is, it also is clear that Barack Obama was briefed that the Hillary Clinton campaign was looking to distract from her email probe by trumping up a connection between Russia and Trump. Do you understand what's going on here? This keeps going back to Hillary Clinton's campaign. And what is really insidious and sinister is that she kept it going after she lost. And it hurt this country. Forget about President Trump.
Thank you.
It really hurt Trump. But it hurt our country for the next 3.5 years and cost us millions of dollars and made us look like the laughing stock of the world. And Vladimir Putin might have stolen this disinformation to Dushenko, to Steele, to us.
Right, well,
that's why he's playing it, and that's why Trump was sitting there saying, are you kidding me? What about my Russian links? And what Adam Schiff just showed you how distracted he is. He said the Ukraine, he asked Russia to help, the Ukrainian probe trying to get stuff on Biden. That had nothing to do with the question. And what happened with Russia, one day he made a comment, hey, Russia, if you have any more emails, bring it forward. Have you met Donald Trump? That was a sarcastic comment like he made throughout his public life.
Well, let's get.
All right, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I think it's actually ticked to the afternoon if you are on the East Coast. We've been following a lot of breaking updates this morning on a lot of different stories, and it is a fire hydrant for news right now. However, we kept steady on the trail and wanted to bring you the death of fake news. Yes, we want to bring you the death of corporate media and the death of fake corporate news as a campaign weapon, as a campaign mechanism for Hillary Clinton. That is precisely what is happening over the last 24 hours. Do not get it twisted. Don't lose the plot. What's happening right now is the destruction of corporate media as a campaign vehicle for Democrats. You are watching people get arrested. You are watching people get dragged before judges because Hillary Clinton and the corporate Democrats decided that they could shop fake, falsehoods, garbage, made-up nonsense in the form of a dossier to corporate media, and corporate media lapped it all up inside of the wrap-up smear. We covered this yesterday in our live, the wrap-up smear. The wrap-up smear is something described thusly by Nancy Pelosi herself. Create a fake document, give it to the idiot press report it, and then say, oh, look, there's your validation. There's your fake document. That's how the wrap-up smear works. Hillary Clinton's campaign did that, and now these people are going to prison because what happened is, one, that's illegal. Two, federal investigations got involved. Federal investigators were lied to in the process. And three, now Joe Biden's White House is implicated. As you just saw there, if you're joining us a little late, Fox News did a wonderful segment this morning on Jake Sullivan. Jake Sullivan is the nasty, translucent skin, weirdo-looking twerp who works inside of the Biden White House in one of the most powerful positions in the Biden White House, National Security Advisor. This dude is high up. He looks like a wet toothpick, but he's high up. Now, this dude, Jake Sullivan, is listed inside of charging documents from John Durham for coordinating with the dossier, the source of the dossier, the guy who made up this trash. Jake Sullivan, the guy who's currently sitting right now in the position of National Security Advisor, was making up Russian hoaxes, was central to making up Russian hoaxes that defamed, derailed, disgraced, and defiled our democracy. Let it be known, ladies and gentlemen, I don't care if you're a Trump supporter. Let it be known, I don't care if you're a Biden supporter. Let it be very crystal clear. And I want this to be way up front. If you win an election, if your votes are real, if you legitimately vote and you legitimately win, your candidate should legitimately get a chance to make the campaign that they ran on real for the American people. Bring to the American people what you campaigned on. It's going to shock you, but in all due respect to Joe Biden right now, he said he was going to surge immigration on the border. He said he was going to get rid of fossil fuels. He said he was going to collapse our currency. The guy kind of did tell us this was going on. Now, we as conservatives, I am a conservative, I am a Republican, screamed from high heaven to warn the rest of the country that this was going to destroy us. So we did our job. Joe Biden legitimately told people what he was going to do. What no American, regardless of where you're from, should be okay with is for the will of the American people to be heard. We elected Donald Trump as our president in 2016. Donald Trump rightfully soundly crushed Hillary Clinton, defeated Hillary Clinton in what I call a modern day landslide. He won by like 80, 100 electoral votes. I think the team watching right now maybe can remind me, how many electoral votes did Donald Trump win by? It was a resounding, defining victory against Hillary Clinton. He won it fair and square, and then what did Hillary Clinton do? That nasty witch shopped around for years at the expense of taxpayers, at the expense of our national sovereignty, our democracy, and the will of the people in this country, a lie, a vicious, sickening lie that her campaign paid for, that her campaign created, that the members of the Biden campaign were involved in creating. Current sitting members of the Biden White House created a fake dossier with Russia, by the way, colluding with Russia, we now know, in order to slander and defame, disgrace, and to rob, strip you, the American people, of your right to elect a president and to let that president govern this country fairly and honestly. Will you, take a breath, will you recognize with me that everything the left accuses us of doing, they are themselves doing? When they say that Donald Trump was a threat to democracy, they are the threat to democracy. When they say that Donald Trump colluded with the Russians in order to rig an election, it was legitimately them colluding with Russia to rig an election. It's clear, it's being clear to all of us for a very long time, but now people are going to prison for it. Now, there have been 3 indictments, and according to John Ratcliffe, there's going to be a ton more. Hopefully, that paddy wagon pulls up to the White House and drags Jake Sullivan's skinny, translucent ass out with it. Because this man is in charging documents from John Durham, and he's now currently our national security advisor. An outrage that should have people marching in the streets right now. An outrage. This is the threat to democracy. This is the threat to our country, and this type of nasty politics is precisely how you lose democracies, how you lose your republic. This type of weaponization of the state against the will of the people is how you destroy a country like ours. We must be careful. We must take this seriously. There's a lot going on in the world right now. We wanted to talk about this because it is, in my personal opinion, the most threatening thing to our democracy indeed. Now, what you just heard there for 6 solid minutes was Fox News doing a wonderful job breaking this down. And it is very simply summarized. Hillary Clinton's campaign, in collusion with her own lawyers and with the collusion with the FBI, created a dossier that is fake, based entirely on lies and falsehoods, then shopped that around, merchandised it, is what they call it, merchandising it, to press and reporters, telling reporters to write it. It got written, it got brought into the FBI by Hillary Clinton's own lawyer. Hillary Clinton's lawyer lied to the FBI, walked into the FBI building, and gave them this dossier and said, hey, I'm just doing it out of the goodness of my heart. Liar! He was getting paid by Hillary Clinton to do that. These scumbags, these rat's nests, these cockroaches. They ship that fake news and shop that fake news around, and it becomes so loud. And when you turn on the TV, all you see is Russia, 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 Trump, collude, Trump, collude, Trump. So all you see, and then you get yourself a special counsel. Then you get yourself 3 years of an investigation that mars and defiles the will of the American people. Trump was not allowed to rule. We're Americans, we don't get ruled. Trump was not allowed to govern in the way that he wanted to govern. His entire administration, you speak with anyone inside of this administration, and many of them are my friends. Many of them are people that I have worked with long time in the past. I lived in Washington, D.C. for 15 years. I know many people, close and personal, high up in the Trump administration. This was a cloud that hung over the President of the United States, Donald Trump, for 4 solid years. He was only rid of it at the very, very end of his term. It kneecapped what could have been done. And it brutalized what should have been the will of the American people. I, along with you, can say this. If Donald Trump failed, let's say you had, I don't know, just hypothetically, high inflation, mass illegal immigration, collapse in Afghanistan, American soldiers killed abroad out of incompetence, supply chain destruction, destruction of our currency, hyperinflation. Let's say Donald Trump brought us all those things. Well, then I would be the first among us to say, oh, Donald Trump should have lost. Maybe I won't support Donald Trump in the next election. But Donald Trump wasn't allowed to do that. Donald Trump wasn't allowed to bring forth his policies in a fair and let's just call it a free market. Donald Trump was kneecapped by fake news, nasty tricks from a witch named Hillary Clinton and her campaign of cockroaches and rats. These parasitical people, they lied to our media, they lied to our federal investigators, they lied to our federal government, and now, hopefully, they're going to prison. We'll see. We'll see. Now, we have to announce to you today a big story that is very big in the media right now. And it has to do with fake news as well. It has to do with the habitual liars inside of our corporate media and how permissive it is, as long as you are a leftist Democrat, to lie on behalf of the regime. The regime liar de jour of our last, let's just call it recent history, the last 20 years in America, the name synonymous with fake news is Brian Williams. Brian Williams is now out of a job. Brian Williams crawled back on his belly to a 11 o'clock show on MSNBC, and now his show is over. Brian Williams is done. Now, I don't know the details. Was he fired? His contract extension was up. His contract was up. So, you know, how this works inside of cable news, I work in cable news as well. How this works inside of cable news is you take the retirement, you take the moving along when your contract isn't going to be renewed. So MSNBC comes to Brian Williams, says you're not getting your contract. You should take the easy W and tell people you're going to spend time with your family, which is exactly what's happening. Brian Williams to leave NBC News after 28 years. Former nightly news anchor who was demoted for telling false war stories calls it the end of a chapter. Well, there is no beginning. We don't know what Brian Williams is doing, but we do know that Brian Williams is out. Here's what Brian Williams had to say about it.
Last thing before we go tonight, as the old song says, we got a thing going on. Think about it. We've been meeting this way at this same time, this same place for an awful long while, 5 years, give or take. Next year is my 40th year in the business. The earth was still cooling, in fact, when I started as a reporter. And so that got me to thinking, and that led me to write something that we made public earlier tonight. And in case you missed it or demanded a dramatic reading, here it is, and it reads like this. Following much reflection and after 28 years with the company, I have decided to leave NBC upon the completion of my current contract in December. I have been truly blessed. I have been allowed to spend almost half my life with one company. NBC is a part of me and always will be. 28 years, 38 countries, 8 Olympic Games, 7 presidential elections, half a dozen presidents, a few wars, and 1 SNL. Good friends were in great supply at NBC. I was fortunate that
All right, well, you know what, there's 2 more minutes left of that. I'll let you guys watch it. You can find it on YouTube if you want. I got a little triggered there, quite frankly. I got a little triggered there because Brian Williams was talking about the wars that he covered. Well, a little interesting. Fascinating, actually, that Brian Williams would mention that he covered wars. Isn't that quite unique? Isn't that something that Brian Williams can talk about covering wars? Isn't it the lying about covering wars that got Brian Williams fired in the first place? Yes, it is. This entire live is about the corporate rot, the fake news. The news that you see isn't real. It is propaganda. It is created by people like Hillary Clinton, by some of the most vicious and evil and venal human beings in our society, and that there are not consequences. It's why we're covering so closely what's happening with Durham. Because with Durham, it's shocking, but there are actually consequences that are happening for people who spread fake news. I give you fake news as fake as the dossier, Brian Williams lying about what happened to him in war.
big-time network TV anchor.
I want to apologize. I said I was traveling in an aircraft that was hit by RPG fire. I was instead in a following aircraft. We're going along for the ride.
The incident in question came in 2003 when NBC's Brian Williams flew in with U.S. troops as they invaded Iraq. Listen carefully to what he said then.
We learned the Chinook ahead of us was almost blown out of the sky. That hole was made by a rocket-propelled grenade, or RPG.
Indeed, careful to underline, that's not the Chinook he was in. But
What happens
in retelling the tale over the years, that detail changed.
2 of our 4 helicopters were hit by ground fire, including the one I was in.
No kidding.
RPG and AK-47, with rounds coming into the airframe. But Did
you think you would die?
Briefly, sure.
Right up to last week,
after their Chinook helicopter was hit and crippled by enemy fire.
when first at an NHL game in New York and then on his own newscast, the new version stood.
When the helicopter we were traveling in was forced down after being hit by an RPG.
Suddenly, soldiers who say they were there fired back. Said one on Facebook, "Such a liar. He was on my aircraft and we were not shot down." Said another, "Sorry, dude, I don't remember you being on my aircraft. I do remember you walking up about an hour after we had landed to ask me what had happened." Twitter, quickly filled with mockery and contempt. Calls for his firing amid fury for an untruth that seemed aimed at making Williams himself look good. And yet today, the pilot in Williams' aircraft in 03 to the rescue. Kinda.
He was there at the time of the attack.
Rich Krell telling CNN, indeed, their aircraft was not hit by the RPG, but it did take small arms fire.
I mean, we were all scared. That's the truth.
A conflation of events, says Williams, in explaining how he misremembered that frightening day,
And also now, my apology.
but leaving many to wonder, is that enough?
Okay, well, there you go. Brian Williams, known liar. Not only did he lie about that, we did a little bit of research here. According to the Daily Mail, Brian Williams, who was actually fired, who was ultimately fired for that lie, is a known and habitual liar. Did so quite a bit, in fact. He took over for Tom Brokaw in 2004, the coveted position of NBC News nightly anchor. But he had subsequent inaccurate statements on the jobs, often about war, in fact, oftentimes lying about his association with some of the most brave and honorable Americans in our country. Let's go ahead and jump down here. All right. In 2008, for example, conflicting accounts called into question his statement that he was at the Brandenburg Gate of the Berlin Wall the night the wall came down. There's no proof that he was actually there. So here is Brian Williams fabricating being at one of the most famous events in world history, Brian Williams fabricating it. He says he claimed to have flown into Baghdad with SEAL Team 6, which was contradicted by special operations officers who said that SEAL Team 6, they don't fly with journalists, obviously. These and similar questionable incidents flew under the radar for most part until 2015. Brian Williams was forced to apologize for telling a disproven story about his helicopter getting hit with an RPG. He claimed that he was on a military helicopter and it was forced down by an RPG. Tape of the original reporting from the incidents showed Williams saying that the helicopter was traveling ahead of him, had been targeted by an RPG and forced to make an emergency landing. The story evolved over years in multiple retellings, but the soldiers aboard the helicopter Williams was traveling in said that no rocket-propelled grenades were ever fired at the aircraft. In a public statement, Williams' suspension, and then NBC Universal Steve Burke, chairman, said his actions, Brian Williams, jeopardized the trust of millions of Americans. Placed in NBC News, his actions are inexcusable, his suspension is severe and appropriate. Lester Holt took this dude's job. So, this is a classic story of when the memes come to life. Here we go. So here I was at this bridge, and Frodo says to me, take the ring. All right. Lord of the Rings meme. Here is Brian Williams Breaking Brian Williams at MSNBC in the fall of Saigon. Yes, these are the memes actually literally coming to life. You saw there Brian Williams saying that he was indeed at the fall of the Berlin Wall. Yeah, great job, Brian. Good memes coming to life. This was tweeted out by Dan Scavino. Oh, it was an honor to be the first man on the moon. Good job, Dan Scavino. This is Donald Trump's digital director, spokesperson, digital spokesperson, trolling Brian Williams. Brian Williams, of course, got a huge demotion, sent over to MSNBC, where he was able to platform clips, where he was able to platform ridiculous, sociopathic, mind-numbing, smooth-brained commentary like this.
That actually, with the money he spent, he could have given every American $1 million.
I've got it. Let's put it up on the screen. When I read it tonight on social media, it kind of all became clear. Bloomberg spent $500 million on ads. U.S. population 327 million. Don't tell us if you're ahead of us on the math. He could have given each American $1 million and have had lunch money left over. It's an incredible way of putting it.
It's an incredible way of putting it. It's true.
No, it's not. No, you could. $500 million, you could have given every American $1 million. No. Do you know simple math? They don't know simple math. They don't know simple truth. They don't know how to be honest. They don't know how to be truthful. All they know how to do is lie. That is exactly what they did with the dossier. It's exactly what Brian Williams personifies. We're very happy to see him go. He should have never gotten another job in media. It was a huge demotion, but nonetheless, he remained on TV. And Brian Williams's final sign-off here. Here's what he had to say, his final time on NBC after years of lying about our armed forces, years of lying to the American people, years of ridiculous commentary like that. Like, if someone spends $500 million, they could give everyone $1 million. They could give 500 million. No, you could give everyone $1. You could give 500 million people $1. You morons. So stupid. Anyway, the worst thing that Brian Williams ever did was personify the lying corporate establishment in lying to the American people time and time again, whether it be about the Brandenburg Gate, whether it be about helicopters in our brave soldiers in Baghdad, whether it be about flying with SEAL Team 6. All verifiable lies that Brian Williams told time and time again, yet corporate media defends their own. Brian Williams kept a job in an anchor's chair, shockingly, and it is truly an insult to you, the American people. They do indeed think that we're all so stupid. They think that we're all so stupid. But it is, here we go, a situation where there is not any consequences for those on the left who lie. It's something that we're going to be discovering here with the Durham trial. We're going to see exactly how many consequences really do exist with John Durham as he drags these rats out of their rats' nests and hopefully throws them in jail for a very, very long time for lying to the American people and lying to the FBI. Consequences, ladies and gentlemen, consequences. I don't need Republicans to win forever. I want Republicans to win forever. Does Donald Trump deserve to be back in the White House? I'd love that. I think that'd be great. I think it'd be great in my lifetime to see a President DeSantis. I'm a huge fan of DeSantis. Do I believe that everyone, regardless of your political ideology, should get a chance to govern if the people elect you rightfully and justly, should get a chance to govern and not be lied about every single day and not have to have the lies and the crushing pressure of the intelligence agencies being weaponized against you over a lie? Yes. Yes. If you are on my political side or if you are not, that is something you should have. I have enough respect for my fellow Americans to say that if you all coalesce around someone, whether that be Barack Obama, whatever, Hillary Clinton, if you legitimately defeat us with a legitimate election and real votes and we lose, if we put up a Mitt Romney or whatever, right, a Mitt Romney, and it just doesn't work, well, then you should be able to, at the very least, govern in a way that is not mired in lies, corruption, and having sickening, pure venom coming from corporate media and from our intelligence agencies and from our federal law enforcement agencies about you. That's what happened to Donald Trump. It's a total miscarriage of justice. It's rage-inducing. Brian Williams was part of that crap, part of all that nonsense. He promoted the dossier as much as anyone, and now he's out of a job. Mr. Fake News, signing off for the last time.
Reflect on the kindness people have shown me, and I will pay it forward. So that's all of it. And we get to meet here in this way for a few more weeks. And the good news is you get to keep watching. As I said, the 11th hour is way bigger than any one man or woman. The truth is, our secret has always been, it's always about our guests. That will never change. So we'll be talking, and come to think of it, I'll see you back here as early as tomorrow night.
Okay, got it. There you go. There's Brian Williams' little sign off there. All right, on MSNBC. Ladies and gentlemen, we can only hope, we can only pray. Are you a praying kind of person? I sure am. We can only hope and we can only pray that these kind of people, here, Hillary Clinton's lawyer, here, National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan, here, John Durham, that these kind of people go to jail for their lies. The only way to save this country is for there to be consequences when you have miscarriages of justice, when you lie to the American people, when you rob us of our voice, when you steal from us our voice and our vote, which is precisely what the libs did, which is precisely what the left did during the Trump era with their vicious tricks, their wrap-up smears, and their dossier trash. Let's hope for the best. Brian Williams, one down. Brian Williams, out of a job. Known liar, corporate shill. And now John Durham maybe finding himself at the White House steps. We'll see. We'll keep you updated, ladies and gentlemen. Please, final thing, sign up for our email list. You can find it in all of our social media accounts. The website link on any of our accounts, the website link will say email list. Very simple sign up page. Drop in your email there. Of course, 100% free. I write this email myself. I write this email with my team, the best memes, the best viral content, the best news of the week. It'll be uplifting. It'll keep you happy. It'll give you hope for this country. The Benny newsletter and many big things to come. Very excited about this show. We are making moves, ladies and gentlemen. It's going to be very, very fun. It's going to be a wild 2022. Expect big announcements in 2022. And big announcements this week. We're very excited about. So, ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you live on this platform later today. Thank you for signing up. Email list. It's the way that I can communicate with you directly, outside of algorithms and outside of websites that I don't control. I don't control Facebook. I don't control Instagram. I don't control YouTube. I wish I did. I think we'd have a different world if I did. But here we are. Your boy Benny signing off. See you guys.